Hi, this is Blake Bettner, Managing Editor of Worn and Wound. Today, we are talking about the Formex Essence Leggera. This is an owner's review of a watch that I picked up last year. Now that I've had some time with it, I wanted to bring you my thoughts, impressions of a watch that I find as an exemplary of all of the things that I love about the small independent brands, micro brands, so whatever you want to call them. This watch has it all. There's fun, smart, creative technical solutions found in this watch that we normally associate with watches kind of in the upper echelon, higher end spaces that have come down into watches in the more approachable space, in accessible watches from Formex, like this. This isn't exclusive to Formex. There are watches using components like carbon fiber and ceramic and quick adjustment systems throughout the small micro brand space today, as we're well aware. We cover many of them here on this site. But this watch brings it all together in a pretty interesting way that I think is worthy of celebrating. I call this a borderline exotic watch, especially considering the sub $2,000 price range. There's a lot of fun, ingenious solutions here, so let's dive in and start breaking some of them down. First off is the case. The mid case is a forged carbon fiber composite that was developed by Formex and is used exclusively by them. It measures 41 millimeters in diameter, 47 millimeters from lug to lug, and 11.3 millimeters in total thickness. Now, overall, this wears very well on the wrist, as you may have guessed by those numbers. What that doesn't quite capture is the weight. This is an exceptionally lightweight watch, given the materials at play here. It weighs, with the strap, 60 grams. This kind of falls into slightly disconcertingly light territory, I would say. I find it comfortable, and it's certainly a watch that disappears on the wrist throughout the day. So it's kind of only there when you need it, and not there when you don't want to think about it. It's certainly not hindering any of your movement or anything like that. And a lot of that comes down to the strap and the clasp that we will get into here shortly. So the case is carbon, and the bezel and crown are zirconium oxide ceramic, which adds a nice level of contrast and finishing to the matte appearance of the case. The dial is produced in-house, and this is a cool gray colorway that matches the strap. This is actually inspired by Nardo gray. You automotive fans will know what I'm talking about there from the Audi catalog, of course. It's a really beautiful gray, and it works well on this watch, and the black accents on the hands and in the hour markers make for great legibility. The design of the dial is a little bit hard to pin down. I would call this kind of an everyday tool watch slash sport watch. It's kind of thin, long hour batons and thin hour hands. It's not dissimilar to something that we see in like the Oris Pro Pilot X, for instance, but there's a certain kind of ambiguity in what genre this watch falls in. You might like that, you might find that annoying. I think the overall point is that this watch is usable every day. I don't know if I'd quite classify this as a go anywhere, do anything watch, but it walks right up to that line pretty effectively. Inside is a Sellita SW200, and it is visible through the case back. On watches like this, I generally prefer a closed case back, but certainly not hurting the situation here, and it doesn't compromise the wearability at all. Now, turning the watch over, you'll notice rather interesting construction details here of this case. You'll notice a central component that's kind of dropped into a sleeve that represents the mid-case section here. And this is to account for Formex's case suspension system. This is a really cool detail about this watch that you don't really see anywhere else. Obviously, this is used exclusively by Formex in quite a few of their watches. Now you notice the core of the watch floats within the case as a whole. So this moves and adapts to your wrist as it's moving, which creates a bit more comfort in active moments. When you're bending your wrist around or anything like that, there's some give there. Now they say that it's also going to absorb shocks and things like that you might subject your body or your wrist to. This is a system that we've seen developed and used by Formex in other watches, and this is maybe one of the trimmest applications of this case suspension that we've seen. I really love seeing it in a case of this stature and profile. It works really well on the wrist and doesn't compromise wearability or anything like that. In fact, you might not even notice it's there until you feel it in use on your wrist. That's not the only component that lends to the everyday comfort of this. Of course, there is a quick adjust system built into the clasp, but it's not like any that you've ever seen before. The part that moves are actually the posts that hold the strap in one part of the clasp. So it can be adjusted on the fly with the press of the clasp on one side, which will let the strap out, and then you can tighten the strap without pressing anything while it's on your wrist. So it's a pretty ingenious solution that, well, you only find on Formex watches. This is one of those things that the first time I saw it, I had a hard time kind of understanding what it was, just because it was so unusual. But once you see it in use and get a sense of what's going on. It's almost one of those solutions that you feel like, how has nobody done this before? It just makes a lot of sense. And the fact that you can adjust it pretty easily on the fly while it's on your wrist, I think is something that is obviously something that we don't see in a lot of other quick adjust systems, but maybe we should be. Maybe this should be part of the consideration for building a on-the-fly quick adjust system. So these are a lot of really unique solutions that are brought to the table by Formex on this watch. These are things that maybe on their own we'd be really impressed by on brands all the way up the scale at a variety of different price points. So to see them all at use here from Formex, developed by Formex, in a watch that's under $2,000, I think is pretty incredible. So, you know, say what you will about the branding or some of the design. I think this is a watch that should be on everybody's radar, and this should be kind of the bar to which smaller brands and even larger brands should hold themselves to in what they're bringing to the table in terms of value within their watches. So that is the Formex Essence Leggera 41. This is also a watch that they make in 39mm and in 43mm, so there's options for everybody. As I mentioned, this is my own watch, so this is me kind of putting my money where my mouth is here. I believe in what Formex is doing, and I believe that brands should be looking to watches like this for inspiration in what they can be doing more. We've got a lot more of my thoughts in the full owner's review that is now live on Worn and Wound. You can catch the link to that down below. If you enjoyed this content, please be sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And until next time, take care.